Picture this. You're walking through an ancient ruin, marveling at the fusion of Greek and Indian artistic styles, when you stumble upon a Buddhist statue that looks suspiciously like Apollo. Strange, right? What if I told you this was the result of mass migrations, desperate refugees, and the biggest cultural mashup of the ancient world? Welcome to the story of the Gandhara civilization, a land where Indo-Greek philosophers, Central Asian warriors, and Buddhist monks all coexisted, giving birth to some of the most stunning art and ideas in history. But here's the kicker: none of this was planned. It was all because of a wave of displaced people running for their lives. So buckle up, because this story has everything: war, refugees, cultural collisions, and an unexpected artistic renaissance. To understand why people ended up in Gandhara, we need to talk about the chaos brewing in Central Asia. This was the stomping ground of steppe nomads, the kind of people who made empires tremble. Think of them as the ancient world's equivalent of heavy metal rock stars, minus the guitars, but with plenty of war horses and swords. Now, around the 2nd century BCE, one particularly nasty chain of events started. The Yuezhi people, once chilling in China's Gansu region, got the boot when the Xiongnu, a ferocious steppe confederation, decided they needed new enemies. The Yuezhi, in turn, invaded the Bactrian kingdom, modern-day Afghanistan, which had been a flourishing Greek-influenced state ever since Alexander the Great waltzed in a century earlier. Bactria's Greek rulers were either absorbed, exiled, or turned into history footnotes, while the Yuezhi set up their own rule. But wait, the domino effect wasn't done yet. The Yuezhi themselves would later be pushed further south into Gandhara by another wave of invaders, the Sakas, Scythians. And where did the Sakas come from? They were fleeing the Parthians, who were expanding westward. Basically, it was a never-ending game of musical chairs, except the loser didn't just miss out on a seat, they lost their entire homeland. So imagine Gandhara, a region covering parts of modern Pakistan and Afghanistan, suddenly receiving wave after wave of these Central Asian migrants. You had Greeks who were pushed out of Bactria, Sakas who were fleeing Parthians, and Yuezhi who were on their own chaotic road trip southward. Instead of just clashing, these groups began blending together, forming a melting pot of cultures unlike anything the world had seen before. The biggest game changer: the arrival of Buddhism. You see, Gandhara was already a Buddhist stronghold, but when the Yuezhi, later known as the Kushans, took over, things went next level. These guys were excellent at absorbing influences. Under King Kanishka, a Kushan ruler who loved Buddhism so much he practically turned it into an international sensation, Gandhara became the launch pad for Buddhist expansion into Central Asia and China. And this is where things get truly mind-blowing: the famous Gandharan art. Imagine Buddha statues that look eerily Greco-Roman, complete with wavy hair, flowing robes, and chiseled facial features. The Greeks brought their sculpting techniques, Central Asians brought their nomadic motifs, and Indian artisans refined it all into something revolutionary. Without the refugee influx, we probably wouldn't have this stunning artistic legacy. Thanks to Gandhara's position as a cultural hotspot, Buddhism didn't just stay local, it spread along the Silk Road. Monks, merchants, and artists carried the teachings of the Buddha to China, Korea, and Japan. In other words, what started as a migration crisis led to one of the biggest religious and artistic movements in history. But the irony? Gandhara itself eventually faded away. The very forces that created it, migration, cultural exchange, and empire building, also led to its downfall. As new powers rose, Gandhara became a relic of the past, buried under layers of history. So what's the takeaway here? History isn't just about kings and battles. Sometimes the biggest shifts happen because ordinary people, migrants, refugees, artists, monks are just trying to survive. The next time someone talks about globalization as a modern phenomenon, remind them that Gandhara did it over 2,000 years ago. And if you ever see a Buddhist statue that looks suspiciously like a Greek god, now you know why. Even though Gandhara as a civilization faded, its influence never truly disappeared. The Buddhist art that originated there became the foundation for what we now associate with East Asian Buddhist aesthetics. The fusion of cultures that happened in Gandhara laid the groundwork for countless artistic and religious traditions. And here's the best part: that same cultural blending continues today. Every time you see artistic styles merging, religions spreading, or people adapting to new places, you're witnessing the same story that played out in Gandhara. History doesn't repeat itself, it just remixes the past into something new.